All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
And welcome to All Indiana Politics on this Sunday morning. Let's begin with that bipartisan infrastructure bill and its potential impact here in Indiana. We're now just about 24 hours from President Biden signing that bill into law, a key part of his agenda this year. The White House is already touting what they claim the plan will mean for our state here in Indiana. $6.6 billion for highway programs, $401 million for bridge replacement, about $100 million for electric vehicle charging stations, and $751 million to improve the state's water systems. But even with that, it hasn't generated huge support from Indiana Republicans. Our Adam Pinsker is with Indiana Democratic Party Chairman Mike Schmuhl.
We're joined by Mike Schmuhl, chair of the Indiana Democratic Party. Mike, thanks for joining us. And I understand it has been a busy week in terms of the past 7 days of the Biden agenda. First thing I want to talk about is the infrastructure bill. How does Indiana benefit specifically? What projects could be fulfilled because of the passage of this bill?
Well, it is huge for our country and huge for Indiana. I think the three biggest things that folks will see in their communities and in daily life are the following. Number one, huge investments in broadband internet access across the Hoosier state. There's about 16% of Hoosiers who don't have access to reliable quality internet, and about half of Hoosiers live in a place where there's only one internet provider. So the bipartisan infrastructure deal really going to help with investments in broadband internet across our state. The next thing, it's bread and butter, local issues. It's roads and bridges. Indiana has over 1,000 bridges that are in need of repair. I think folks, when they drive around, see all the construction, but also a lot of crumbling infrastructure that really needs to be addressed. And so we are poised to receive about $7 billion in federal funding here in Indiana to repair our roads and bridges and our public infrastructure. And lastly, again, it's very basic. It's daily life, but water infrastructure. Everybody across Indiana deserves quality, safe, healthy, tested drinking water from public utilities. And so a lot of these systems are outdated. They needed to be fixed, and there are critical investments in this package to do just that.
Last time I checked, conservatives and liberals drink from the same water supply. So why was this such a battle? Was it the price tag? Was it what was in the bill?
Well, I think that's the key thing about the bipartisan infrastructure deal, that key word, bipartisan. Actually, 19 Republican senators voted for this package, including their leader, Mitch McConnell, just to our south in Kentucky. 13 Republican members in the House voted for this package. So it truly was one of the largest bipartisan pieces of legislation that we've seen in years coming out of Washington. And so, yes, it took some time to get it right and to push it through. But I'm so glad, and I think the vast majority of Americans are so glad that it did. I think the other things that I'm looking at are the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, normally, a little bit more on the right, moderate to right, came out and strongly supported this package and thanked Congressman Mervan up near Chicago and Congressman Carson right there in Indianapolis for their votes on this package. Additionally, the National Governors Association, headed up by a Republican, the governor of Arkansas, also endorsed this package. And so there's a lot for everybody. And I think, the other side, and particularly our delegation, where nobody voted yes, they're going to decry it as socialism and it's out of control spending and all of those kinds of things. But look at what we just talked about. Roads, bridges, water, internet for people who don't have it. That's not socialism to me. That's investments in our economy to make sure that we're set up for this century.
How come that gets drowned out by socialism? It seems like, do you think the Democrats, the president, can do a better job of selling that to the American public? Because, all I hear when I'm out covering this is socialism and it's too much spending. Why does the message get distorted between the Democratic Party and the American public?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think the last, sort of decade, really when I've been involved here in Hoosier politics, there's been a nationalization of our media, right? I think a lot of people consume media in different ways. A lot of people consume media online. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, disinformation, fake news, conspiracy theories, all these things. But at a higher level than that, I think that Republicans are reverting back to their stance before Trump came into office, which was we're against everything and no to everything that comes up. And I think the other way that they work around that is wedge issues, using cultural issues, finding something to really highlight, to sort of manipulate with folks, to have them thinking more about that than perhaps more about the policies that are impacting their daily life. And so, I'll give you an example. That's why we're going on the road. This is our 4th tour in 5 months, and I'm leading an Indiana small town tour. We're going to 14 small towns across the Hoosier State to talk about what we're talking about here: infrastructure, jobs, getting out of COVID, kids, helping our agriculture community, helping our farmers. Those are things that are going to help folks in their daily lives. And so, we're trying to maybe use a little bit different playbook. We're going into communities, having face-to-face conversations, listening to folks, talking with folks in the communities in which they live, because I truly believe that the policies that we're promoting are helpful to the American people.
And this could be in a similar vein in terms of the message, but you may encounter folks in these towns who are the type of voters you guys covet, middle class, working folks who are struggling with the inflation. Most economists say that any president, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, cannot individually solve inflation, yet the president, whoever it may be, gets blamed for it, in this case, President Biden. What do you do about that?
Yeah, it's tough. I think that the old adage from Tip O'Neill a few decades ago was all politics is local, and you might argue, some people argue with me, all politics is national now, right? With our media and the digitization of all of that. But I think what I would say is just what we're doing is investing in people, and we're investing in communities right now. And I think the other thing that's really important to note is the economic indicators that are out there. The big ones are really, really healthy. There are some inflation pressures that we got to look at, and prices are going up. But folks are looking for work. Folks are going back to work. We're adding hundreds of thousands of jobs every month to our economy. I think COVID also showed just how much our economy is shifting right before our eyes, kind of slowed that down a little bit. You saw supply chain demands, food issues, how people work, where they work, competition in the workplace over wages, things like that. And so we're going through this time right now as a state and as a country. And I think that Joe Biden is seeing that all of these things are changing, but we have to invest in people throughout this time, because they're seeing a lot of the pressures, and also with cost. They're seeing a lot of the pressures. We got to help them out through this period so we can get back on track and have one of the strongest American economies ever.
Mike Schmuhl, chair of the Indiana Democratic Party, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Gentlemen, thank you. Coming up, Mike Pence and the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. A House committee looks to talk to the Pence inner circle as we hear a stunning new interview with President Trump about his vice president on that day. That's next on All Indiana Politics. All right, welcome back on this Sunday. We're following several other big stories for you this week. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita wants limits on Black Lives Matter in Indiana classrooms. Rokita issued an official opinion on Thursday calling Black Lives Matter an unequivocally political group. The opinion suggests public school districts only allow or discuss Black Lives Matter material. It also allows all political organizations. Rokita also recommends that against displays of Black Lives Matter signs or other material in schools, writing that, quote, students are captive audiences in the classroom, regardless of whether the teacher is speaking. So whatever is displayed in the classrooms, hallways, or on cafeteria walls, the students are exposed to those messages. State Senator John Crane was one of the Republican lawmakers who asked for the opinion.
With the advance of the Black Lives Matter movement, it's created some confusion and some difficult situations for good folks who want to support the idea because Black lives really do matter, because all lives matter, but then are uncomfortable with some of the underpinnings and the associations with the Black Lives Matter movement itself. I think the message is not that we don't believe Black Lives Matter. I think the message is simply that in order to promote human dignity and, again, critical thinking within the classroom, it's imperative that if we're going to present one side, then the other side also needs to be presented so that students can weigh the merits of each position as they're in those formative years and making their own decisions.
In other news this morning, a report issued in July of last year by the federal government found that Black Lives Matter was not a partisan political party. Rokita argues the group's activities have changed since that decision. Well, the January 6th committee wants to question some of the closest advisors for former Vice President Mike Pence in the final months of the Trump presidency. The committee this week subpoenaed Keith Kellogg, who served as Pence's national security advisor. The committee has reportedly also issued subpoenas for Pence's former chief of staff and former chief counsel. Pence has decided his refusal to declare Donald Trump the winner of the 2020 election and has called the effort to overturn the election results un-American. We're also hearing stunning new audio from former President Donald Trump about Mike Pence on January 6th. It's part of a new book by ABC News chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl. The book is called Betrayal, the Final Act of the Trump Show. You may remember that rioters inside and outside the Capitol on January 6th chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." You may also remember Pence was able to get out of the Senate chamber and to safety just 60 seconds before the mob arrived. In a recorded interview for the book, Trump defends those threats to kill his own vice president.
Were you worried about him during that siege? Were you worried about his safety?
No, I thought he was well protected, and I had heard that he was in good shape. Mm-hmm. No, because I had heard he was in very good shape. But no.
You heard those chants. That was terrible. I mean, those,
he could have. Well, the people were very angry.
They were saying, "Hang Mike Pence."
Because it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
Now, in the book, Karl also says the vice president and his family were taken to a loading dock beneath the Capitol during the insurrection. He also says there are official White House photos of those moments, but that the former vice president has blocked those from publication. Pence has not made public comments on the book. Coming up, the campaign finance controversy surrounding Senator Mike Braun. Our political experts are ready to break down what exactly it means. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back Tom John, former Marion County Republican Party chairman, and Kip Tu, former Indiana Democratic Party chairman. Gentlemen, good to see you. Let's start with the story that broke late this week in the Daily Beast about Senator Mike Braun. Just to kind of recap here, the report says Braun faces allegations of violating campaign finance laws, including what it calls millions of dollars of illegal loans. A Braun spokesperson says the report is only a draft and that they have submitted documents to clear up any confusion. So just how big of a deal are these allegations? Kip, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, I mean, I think it's a extraordinary revelation. I mean, it's not just what the headline says. If I have a second, I'd like to read to you what basically the big bullet points are. He overstated both contributions and disbursements by millions of dollars. He failed to file 48-hour notices for large contributions on time. He didn't disclose over 1,000 contributions, what they're supposed to put on it. He accepted $1.17 million worth of contributions above the limit. He repaid himself more than permitted, and he failed to properly disclose. Those are all in and of themselves serious violations, but that's all of them. Now, they said it's just a draft. His biggest problem is, I think, and I don't know if Tom will disagree with this, he probably won't be able to say anything, but Braun's biggest problems come from inside the House, right? And what I mean by that is he's thinking about entering a primary for governor, from what we understand. And the attacks are going to come from inside Republicans. It's not what Democrats are saying about this at the moment. It's what his fellow Republicans are saying behind his back. And that's going to be very, very damaging to him.
So, Tom, go ahead.
I thought it was humorous. One more thing. I thought it was humorous that, they said they couldn't find the guy. It was a staffer's problem. And the reporter found the guy within 12 hours, I believe.
So, Tom, are these allegations really big?
Well, certainly this is not something you want to have. And I think this is a cautionary tale for any candidate, any person that wants to pursue office, is somebody like Senator Braun, who is a businessman, who understood a system where you have accountants and you have professionals and you have lawyers and you trust them to do your business, and they get it done. And in this case, they hired somebody that it appears did not know what they were doing and may have had some problems here. But it's not clear that any of this was intentional, but rather you have a very complicated system in the FEC, and you have a system that has very specific requirements, and they may have just hired the wrong person here. And yeah, they may not have been able to locate them, but if you can call somebody and they don't call back, it's not like you're going to send out a private investigator to seize them. I mean, the Daily Beast made a big deal of it. They couldn't find him. Well, it's one thing to try and track down where somebody lives. It's another to get him actually to answer, when clearly they made a lot of mistakes in this.
But, Tom, we're already hearing some Democrats saying that he stole the election from Joe Donnelly. What say you?
Well, I don't believe there's any stolen election here. For one thing, that race had $100 million spent from all sorts of corners, and whatever came through this campaign, frankly, was only a piece of that. And the reality of that race is it was about people in Indiana wanting to see somebody who was a Republican leader and who was taking a different tack than what Joe Donnelly had in his period of time.
Kip, I know you talked about it a little bit before, but you do think that this is going to have long-term impact on him?
If he runs again, yes, without a doubt. I think that Republicans will attack him in a primary if he does this again. And I just want to comment to what Tom said about, stolen election. I think we ought to try to avoid that kind of language. He cheated. I think that's easy to say and maybe fair to throw at them. But I tend to agree with Tom. The election might have been different had he not cheated, but that doesn't mean it was stolen in the instance of someone went there and didn't count all the votes or all that kind of stuff. I think we need to avoid those kind of accusations.
Fair enough.
And I'll take a little issue with Kip. Right now, the jury's out whether it's cheated or made a mistake, and we've all made mistakes. And so the question is what you do after the mistake.
Okay, we'll see.
That's
what
a lot of mistakes, Tom. That's a lot of mistakes.
Let's switch gears here now, gentlemen. Talk about infrastructure, if you don't mind. Tom, we'll watch the president sign the bill this coming week. So will it be hard for Republicans to talk against this once projects start really getting announced here in Indiana? It could have some really good impact.
I mean, you've picked a topic where I'm one of the co-directors of our P3 group, which is about getting infrastructure done and rehabilitating a lot of our infrastructure that hasn't been invested in the past. So there will be certainly people who do not like or do not think we should be spending this money. I actually come at this from the perspective of we've got a lot of deferred maintenance and deferred investment in our country in real infrastructure, by the way, not the type of fake infrastructure that we're seeing discussed in the reconciliation bill, but real infrastructure will be meaningful for a lot of our citizens to ensure things like broadband and other things. Yeah. And I think as these projects come, a lot of people are going to be, they may not be publicly applauding it, but they're also not going to be publicly attacking it because they think it'll be popular.
Kip, I'm almost out of time. 30 seconds on infrastructure.
$8 billion come into the state of Indiana. $8 billion. Our annual budget's $18 billion for everything. This is a huge investment across the country. It's a huge win for everybody in the United States of America. It's putting people to work. It's Joe Biden fulfilling the promises he made when he ran for office.
Gentlemen, always good to see you. Good conversation. We'll talk soon. We'll be right back.
Take All Indiana Politics on the go with you. Download our podcast now. Part of the All Indiana Podcast Network and allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
And thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics on this Sunday. Of course, we'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.